Story 1. I will probably respawn somewhere with no memory of my last playthrough. I hope there are fewer side quests this time. Story 2. I am a Frisbeetarian. We believe that when we die, our souls go up on the roof and cannot be brought back down. Story 3. Oblivion. You return to the nothingness you cannot recall from before you started forming memories. Story 4. You return to the same state of non-being you were in before you were born. Story 5. Bacteria take over. Fortunately, I will be in the oven. Well done. Story 6. Your body is returned to the earth as it should be. The energy that is your soul returns to the universe until it is used again. Story 7. The same thing that happens when you are under anesthesia. Everything goes black, and that is it. Story 8. I was in a coma for 6 weeks last year. Felt like nothing but sleep. Story 9. Louis C.K. Well, a lot of things happen after you die. It's just that none of those things include you. Story 10. I'm a skeptic and agnostic, but given how extraordinary our existence is, I hold out hope that there is something more. I would not be surprised if we are in a simulation like The Sims. I used to be an atheist, but I have had some wild spiritual experiences that led me to become agnostic. Story 11. You log out of this cool new game and have dinner with your real family. Story 12. You donate every part of yourself that can help other people. Story 13. I like to think that we are reincarnated, or that we will see our friends and family again, but I know that it could just be wishful thinking on my part. Story 14. I think our energy dissipates into the universe, our bodies return to the earth, and we remain in the memories of those who knew us only while they are alive. But we are part of everything. Story 15. I guess your brain has one last serious trip out as it dies. That is why people see things. Story 16. You go to the Great Squirrel God, where you are transformed into a nut and planted by a squirrel to become a tree. Story 17. I don't believe in heaven or hell in the traditional sense. I believe that after we die, we get to choose between the Serbian afterlife and the Albanian afterlife. Those who are undecided are sent to the Kosovan afterlife. Story 18. Nothing at all. My physical remains are disposed of by others and I have ceased to exist. Story 19. People will miss you. You'll live on in stories for a while before you fade. Eventually the world moves on, subtly shaped by your actions like ripples in a pond, contributing to a collective sense of human progress in an uncertain direction. Story 20. I came from the soup and will return to it. Parts of what I once was will bubble up and become parts of new beings that will also return. Story 21. Your body returns to the earth what it borrowed. Story 22. I am spiritual, so I believe we return to our home depending on what we do on earth. We meet our ancestors, spirit guides, and other beings. I am not sure whether we must reincarnate or can choose to do so later, or whether we can do the work here and ascend to a higher level of consciousness to avoid returning to Earth. My goal is not to reincarnate on Earth, laughing out loud. Story 23. When you die, someone you loved who is already passed will come for you. I was in a medically induced coma for 3 weeks. I dreamed. My life kept going and I died for a short time. My dead cat came to tell me to follow him, but my living cat told me not to. The dead cat returned with my grandmother, who was angry and would not look at me. The living cat appeared again and told me to come with him. I saw myself receiving chest compressions. People visited me and appeared in my dreams. Part of the time I was on a beach and my life felt great. Before my grandmother died, she said her sisters came to tell her it was almost time. I think someone comes to make the transition easier. I do not believe in God, but I do believe in an afterlife. Story 24. I believe there is a purpose to this vast universe full of unknown things and places. I am not saying we are going to die and become aliens, but I do not think the universe is there for nothing. Story 25. Lights out, like the end of The Sopranos. Nothing more, nothing less. Story 26. The self that I think of as me is gone for the time being. Some parts of me will become nutrients for the earth. Other parts will become part of the earth. The earth itself will die one day, So will the sun, the stars, the galaxy, and the rest of the universe. Of course, this will take trillions upon trillions of years, but the parts of me that have become parts of other things are none the wiser. To us, everything would seem instantaneous. I believe the universe is cyclical. As the universe dies, it will eventually collapse into itself, birthing a new universe in an infinite cycle. In some cycles, I will be nothing more than dust and ash. In others, I may be born again as someone or something entirely new. The funny thing about infinity is that it is hard for us to grasp. In an infinite cycle, there will be many times when I am reborn as myself, sometimes a little different, sometimes exactly the same, sometimes with the same people I love, and sometimes with others. None of us will be aware that this has happened. For all we know, we are in a single timeline with one universe, unaware of the many before us and the many yet to come. We will laugh and cry, be happy and sad, and wonder what happens at the end and what comes next. We will try to put a finite limit on the infinite because that is all we understand. In a way, we exist forever. Have you ever wished you could erase your memory and rewatch your favorite movie again? It will be like that, although sometimes you may have to watch the bad ones too. Just know that for every bad one, another good one will come your way. Story 27. I have faith God will take me to where I need to go when I die. Story 28. I'm going to heaven. I have such peace in that belief. I'll be reunited with my family and friends who have passed away. I know that's not a popular answer, especially on Reddit, but you asked for beliefs, and that's mine, and I'm sticking to it. Story 29. My son asked me once, Daddy, do we dream when we're dead? What if we simply entered our dreams and stayed there forever? Story 30. From Raymond Chandler, The Big Sleep. What did it matter where you lay once you were dead? In a dirty sump or in a marble tower on top of a high hill. Once dead, you slept the big sleep and were not bothered by such things. Oil and water were the same as wind and air to you. You did not care about the nastiness of how you died or where you fell. Story 31. I don't know what happens, but I'll tell you what I hope happens. I hope we all become what we deserve to be. For me, I would like to be a big cat, the king of the jungle, a tiger or a lion. Story 32. We are travelers. That is a scientific fact. Our star system moves through the universe. Your soul or consciousness is pure energy. That is also a fact. The law of thermodynamics says energy is conserved and is transferred from one form to another. This life may be a way of passing time on the journey, a series of lessons, or the work of an all-important God who created us. It is not an accident or random chaos. There is a plan in all of this. Story 33. Our soul energy goes into the sun. Our personality no longer exists. We are no longer aware of our existence. Existence becomes pure energy, joined to other energy and transferable into any other type of energy. Story 34. To some extent, what we believe becomes reality. Story 35. Generally, I think you fade back into the same nothingness as before you were born, or maybe have a dream or two until your brain dies. The more I pay attention to the news in America, the more I hope there really is a hell for some people. Story 36. Safe for work. Something like this. Story 37. Everything just stops and you are not even aware of it. A whole lot of nothingness just before I was born. You only live once. Story 38. You would be flooded with memories and dreams as your neurons gradually stop firing, until your brain goes completely offline, assuming it was not instantly destroyed by whatever caused your death. You might even retain enough self-awareness to realize you are dead and experience hallucinations of religious figures, ancestors, or afterlife scenes drawn from your culture. People who have been revived often report these types of experiences. Story 39. I'll do what I was doing before I got here, not existing. Story 40. My hope is reincarnation. Reality is nothing. We are made of borrowed energy. Story 41. We either go to heaven or to hell. Heaven is a paradise, and hell is eternal fire without water. Story 42. The same thing happened before I was born. I did not exist. Now I do. One day I will not. Story 43. The spiritual side of me would like to think there is a place I go, or I am reincarnated. The scientific part of me thinks that once my physical form dies, the atoms that make me up simply become part of something else, and that is it. Nothing more. The Big Sleep. Story 44. We are eternal spiritual beings living a temporary human experience. After we die, we ascend into another realm. I believe consciousness continues after death. I have had out-of-body experiences during sleep when I floated up to the ceiling and physically touched it. I was scared and then woke up in my physical body. These experiences made me think there is much more to life and that other realms exist. Story 45. The same thing that happened to us before we were born. Nothing. Story 46. Just like before you were born. That beautiful, forgiving nothingness. I like to call it nature's mercy. Story 47. I welcome absolute nothingness when I die. Story 48. I think that once you die, that is it. The only thing that remains is the memory people hold of you. Be kind to everyone and try to leave your loved ones with good memories. Story 49. Your atoms are redistributed to the universe where you came from. Life is the struggle against entropy, but in the end entropy always wins. Just live well while you can. Story 50. Nothingness. There is nothing after. People are too afraid to believe that. It is just like before you were born. Story 51. I do not know and I do not care, as I will have no say in it anyway. This fascination with life after death scenarios arose because the medieval church wanted to extract money from the gullible. Story 52. My belief is that when you die, you simply cease to be. The bioelectrical patterns that ran through your brain have been shut off. Much like there was no you before you were born, there is no you after death. The rest of the world keeps moving along. It does not pause for you. Hopefully you have made enough of an impact on people's lives that the memory of you is not forgotten. Bleak, maybe. I see it as realistic. Make use of the time you have now. Do not put it off. Story 53. A spark that got us started is released back into the collective. We become part of something else. This continues until the universe ends or whatever happens down the line. Story 54. Nothing happens after we die. We came from nothing and return to nothing. The only tangible thing we leave is people's memories of us. So make sure those memories are good. Story 55. This is my belief. When our bodies die, it is like getting out of a car. Our spirit leaves the body and the transition feels like nothing. Instantly we are at peace and in love because that is our natural state. Our spirit expands and we exist outside of space and time, able to be in multiple places and see whatever we want. We also know everything because we are no longer limited by the human form we left. We are greeted by entities that appear as deceased family members or whatever makes us feel comfortable and happy. Each experience is crafted specifically for the person we just were. Then we are taken to an orientation center where guides explain what happened and help us remember who we are. We review the life we just lived, reliving all aspects not only from our perspective but from the perspectives of others we interacted with, feeling their happiness and pain according to those interactions. I believe this corresponds to the Bible's account of hell, because if you were harmful, you must experience the pain and suffering you inflicted on others. Conversely, if you were good, you experienced the joy you brought to others. After that, we rest and explore whatever we want. Eventually, we can become one with God if we choose, or we can choose to return to Earth in a new body to relearn what we did not fully learn in previous lifetimes. When we die, only our physical bodies die. We do not truly cease to exist, because we are spiritual beings first and human second. Story 56. A lot happens after you die, but almost none of it involves you. Story 57. I am really hoping that we do not experience our souls returning to Earth to learn a lesson. Please do not let this be true. It is torture, and it scares me more than hell. Story 58. We return to the light and have a new experience in a different embodiment in another galaxy. Story 59. I don't know. Perhaps we retain self-awareness in a completely free realm, unencumbered by our bodies. Story 60. You just kind of sit in a black void forever with nothing else to do. Story 61. I have no firm idea. It depends on whether there is a creator, which I will not rule out even though I consider myself an agnostic atheist. For the same reason a creator outside our universe is not provable, a universe we do not completely understand does not preclude a creator. If our universe could just exist, a creator could also just exist, and vice versa. If general creationism were correct, I think any creator or creators would be more forgiving of atheism and agnosticism than earthly religions claim, since they chose not to give proof. They would lead us to whatever afterlife or rest exists. If creationism is not correct, I think the afterlife would be the same experience as before we were born. That also means life could reemerge in a different form at some point, because matter and energy persist and may once again give rise to consciousness. Forever is a long time, and we already have evidence consciousness can arise at random. On consciousness, I see two possibilities. One, it is an illusion. There is only matter and energy acting as if they have perspective. That is comforting because matter and energy persist, so something like consciousness could arise again even if I as an individual do not return. Two, it is not an illusion. It is a true soul that comes from beyond our physical makeup. That would be comforting too, because the soul could inhabit a newly constructed physical form. Perhaps there is just one soul, and our individuality comes from physical separation. Either way, I became conscious once, so it could happen again if we consider the universe as it is and assume no creator intervenes. Story 62. I would bet on nothingness. Maybe heaven, but I am probably on God's naughty list. Story 63. I must believe I will be met by my family and friends who passed before me with open arms and calming smiles. They will take me to heaven, whatever that looks like, and we will be together forever. I need this belief for my own sanity. Story 64. My 5-year-old son asked me this. I went through a few common beliefs, touched briefly on various theologies, and then I asked what he thought. He said, "Does it matter? I'll find out eventually. That is what I believe now." Story 65. I go into the dirt. That is it. People grieve for a bit and eventually move on with their lives. Story 66. I believe we become energy like in the films Phenomenon and Powder. We are in the wind and the earth, in the roll of the waves and the blooming of flowers. Our souls float freely and are felt in the soft rain. Eventually we will drift into the starry sky. Story 67. Everyone says we existed before we were born, but we were not created yet, so I would like to hope it is different. I hope I am some sort of spirit that can fly through space, explore other planets, and feel no pain, worry, anger, or stress. I want to keep my memory and not reincarnate or go through it again. I hope for heaven, but I really hope it is not just nothing. That is my biggest fear, and I worry about it a lot. Story 68. I think everything starts over. When you fall asleep, you do not feel the hours pass. You kind of just wake up, and it is suddenly hours later. I think the universe restarts and death is just the nap between cycles. Whether we live exactly the same lives or different ones, I have no clue. Story 69. Enter, good and faithful servant. Or depart from me. I never knew you. Story 70. I believe in Jesus Christ and that we will either spend eternity in the presence of our Creator or we will not. Story 71. This person explains it best. Story 72. After I'm reduced to ashes, my other being will be greeted by every pet I've ever owned, led by all the dogs. I'll catch up with the family later. I want to see all my dogs and cats. Story 73. We come back repeatedly to live out parts of our dreams we never reached. When everything has been achieved, we stop returning and disappear into the ether. Story 74. Sort of a combination of what dreams may come, dead like me and wings of desire. However, I have my own interpretation. I do not believe in a creator in the traditional ego-based sense. I see more of a collective of beings that evolved before us. Story 75. The same state as before I was born. Nothingness. I am not sure why people are so afraid of this. The complete absence of everything seems wonderfully peaceful. A literal eternal slumber. I think it is delightful. Story 76. I believe consciousness is a limited collective. We are vessels channeling a singular higher consciousness, a hive mind unaware of itself. Our experiences are gathered individually and accumulated collectively. For what purpose and for how long, I do not know. Perhaps we are an agent of entropy experiencing every event that could ever come to pass at an incredibly slow pace. Story 77. Nothing. Remember what it was like before you were born. Exactly that. Story 78. Your body and brain stop working and decay. If there is a metaphysical component of consciousness, it may extinguish without a functioning brain or continue in some unknown way. It is possible to imagine an almost infinite variety of metaphysical possibilities, and by definition they cannot be scientifically verified. I am skeptical but open-minded enough to consider further evidence. I have had experiences that might be metaphysical, but I remain agnostic about them. Story 79. The cradle rocks above an abyss, and common sense tells us that our existence is but a brief crack of light between two eternities of darkness. Story 80. Finally free of bills and responsibilities? Sleep forever. Story 81. Someone will say, "Do you want to try again?" I get inserted back into the program. Story 82. Life repeats when memory is erased. Déjà vu occurs when you repeat the same actions. Story 83. I think South Park nailed it when they said, "I believe it is a lot like how it was before you were born. We do not remember birth, and we probably will not remember death." Story 84. We might reincarnate and never know it. Perhaps everyone who has ever existed or will ever exist is a reincarnation of you in parallel realities. Credit to Andy Weir for that story and theory. Story 85. From dust you came, and to dust you shall return. I also plan to stick around in limbo to watch over my grandchildren. Story 86. Most of my family has died, so I'm pretty familiar with the drill by now. It's not a big secret. I will be buried or cremated. Story 87. Realistically, probably nothing. I do not fear that in the least. If that is the case, it is the way it has been for billions of humans before me. Our lives simply end. We are gone forever. Hopefully, we live on in the memories of those who knew us. I was thinking, as I often do, of my long-dead, much-loved grandmother last night. She would have liked to know she would live on in my pleasant memories for half a century. The same is true for many others I have mourned. Story 88. Most days I hope it is nothing, just a peaceful void. I spent a lifetime doing things and often think it would be genuinely nice to have nothing afterward. I know the afterlife is a common idea, but sometimes I cannot fathom living a whole life and then doing it again. Beyond that, I think there are options for the spirit. Maybe we are pulled to a specific afterlife. Maybe we linger on Earth in some sort of limbo with varying awareness. Sometimes I think I would be rather happy being some sort of forest spirit after I die, coming to visit or bother family and close ones from time to time. Story 89. Like a personal computer or a digital versatile disc player, we simply turn off and there is nothing. Story 90. Nothing. It reverts to what it was like before I was born. Story 91. You are no longer a functioning being. You have ceased to exist and are like an empty bottle. Story 92. I will become nothing. If I am, so be it. Story 93. Nothing. It's like when you're sleeping, but it's just black forever. Story 94. I believe everyone goes to hang out in Sheol until it's time for final judgment. Story 95. Your consciousness separates and becomes one with all the things you loved while you were alive. Story 96. Interesting discussion on this topic in Dan Brown's latest novel. Story 97. I believe you never leave your body. You remain conscious for eternity as your body decomposes around you, continuously feeling the pain and causing it to grow because of humanity's suffering until it finally breaks free into real space. Story 98. I believe in the soul and that we inhabit this body in this universe for a small fraction of our soul's journey. We choose which lives to live, and we know the reasons when we make that choice. We have been and will be many kinds of beings, some beyond our comprehension, before settling in a final destination enriched by the knowledge we acquire. Some souls have already lived many lives, and some are just beginning. Some souls choose to experience extreme trauma or very short lives because they understand why those experiences are necessary. Others are new and fumble their choices, choosing what seems easy and making mistakes. They choose better the next time. Essentially, the soul controls where it goes and what it learns. It all happens so quickly that suffering is a brief moment, but the lesson endures. Story 99. You enter a dreamlike state as your body shuts down. Then there is nothing. People who have had near-death experiences describe this. Story 100. Your soul is reborn into new experiences and lessons. Story 101. My optimistic side hopes there is a paradise, but I do not really believe that will happen. I do not have a firm belief about the afterlife because I do not know. My two strongest ideas are oblivion or some form of quantum immortality. Consciousness shifts to a different timeline where you continue to live, or your atoms are reassembled after eons and continuously recycle until the end of time. Story 102. To be honest, nobody knows about the afterlife. Live your best life here because you never know. Story 103. I believe the universe is consciousness and that the idea of an individual self apart from it is an illusion. When you die, there are no more mind-conjuring parlor tricks to make you think you are separate from that universal consciousness. Story 104. The people who love you will miss you. I think you simply return to the general energy that exists in the universe. Story 105. You are worm food. That is it. There is no heaven where everyone is wonderful and everything is perfect. There is also no hell where you are punished for eternity. You simply cease to exist. This is my feeling on the matter, but many people obviously feel differently. Story 106. You return to the source. You may come back if there is more for you here. If not, you will spend eternity there in peace with others like you. Story 107. I have a terrible fear of dying, but I like to think that I will die old, having lived a full life with my family and having seen my children grow up and be okay after my partner and I are gone. Unfortunately, I do not believe in heaven or that I will see my family on the other side. I will never know what will happen because I will no longer exist. Story 108. You know those times you doze off while watching television? The only reason you notice is that the show has suddenly skipped ahead when you wake up. Well, death is like that, except you do not wake up, so you never notice anything wrong. I am fine with that. Story 109. I want to believe I will go to an afterlife, but I do not know what it will be. Will it be a perfect paradise where you can virtually do anything and live a good life with friends and family? Will it be a fantasy of living in a mansion with a group of people? Or will I spend eternity with my crush? This fascinates me. Story 110. Reincarnation. I believe that time is infinite, meaning everything that can happen must happen eventually. That implies that no matter how small the chance, there will be an infinite number of universes at some point. I believe that we will be reincarnated in those universes repeatedly, living different versions of our lives. In fact, I have even considered that we are all part of a single consciousness that cycles through these lives and universes. Story 111. I think most people imagine their own version of the afterlife. For example, instead of a shared idea of heaven, if I picture heaven as a huge garden filled with roses, that will be my heaven when I die rather than a celestial place in the clouds. The idea of hell feels more collective. The tortures and fears associated with it are personal, since people do not like to imagine themselves enduring eternal despair. Also, people who do wrong rarely see themselves as bad, so they would not expect to go to hell. Story 112. Thankfully, nothing. Life is fun while it lasts, but it loses meaning if it is just a doormat to something else that no one can demonstrate. Story 113. If matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, as Einstein pointed out, then I think you are transformed into another form of matter or energy, essentially returning to nature. Story 114. It depends. I think it is possible I will be sent to live another life if this one is not fulfilled. Then again, if it is fulfilled, there is no real purpose for rebirth. Story 115. When I step on a cockroach and kill it, does it go to heaven? It simply dies and is gone. In this universe, we are all like cockroaches. When we die, the lights go out and that is that. There is no evidence to the contrary. It is vain and egocentric to think we are any more special than cockroaches, to believe we have life after death and go to a place that excludes them. Story 116. You die. Nothing happens because there is no you to experience it. It is like asking what happens if you are in an explosion and every cell of your brain is ripped to pieces and scattered over a wide area. The result is a mess. What happens to you? You stop existing because you are just the thing that experiences events, and that experiencer is no more. Thinking that the experiencer somehow continues to exist seems absurd. We even say of the elderly, the catastrophically injured, or those with dementia that people are not themselves anymore, there is nobody in there, and so on. The part of you that experiences being you ceases to be, so there is no you. Everything else is a messy biology lesson. It is like asking what a camera records when you have smashed the camera to smithereens and it is no longer powered or capable of operating. Nothing, because it is no longer a camera and it cannot record. Do you think there is a ghost camera or a camera soul released at that point that wanders the earth recording things? No. When I die, I will rot away like any other biological organism, but I will have no way to experience, record, or feel that. Story 117. I believe we have no way of knowing, and our need to know is the absurd part. Story 118. We return to the source, God, and are dispersed as needed. Story 119. I believe in spirit. We leave our physical bodies behind and exist on a different plane. Where the spirit goes is unknown to me. Story 120. I do not think you die. Either we are in a simulation and cannot die, or the religious people are right and we cannot die. Either way, from our own perspectives, we will not die. How other people perceive your death is a matter of speculation. Story 121. Truck Kuin takes you to your iSky world where you can invent mayonnaise and fulfill your power fantasy. Story 122. I always had the thought that your last moments stretch on forever in your own mind. The final dream you have before the lights go out may seem to last for eternity, but it is only a blink in our time. Story 123. You become compost. New life feeds on you and grows, and the circle of life continues. Story 124. I'm really sorry you're feeling this way. Are you thinking about harming yourself right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call emergency services. In the United States, call 988 or 911. Otherwise, call your local emergency number. If you can, reach out to someone you trust or a crisis line. I can help find resources or correct the text. Here's the corrected version for Azure text-to-speech. You go to sleep and that's it. I'm more worried about how I will die. I want it to be quick and painless. Story 125. I believe when you die you get to see the people you care about, the ones you want to keep track of. That may sound silly, but it is not always about a happily ever after in my mind. I think an honest afterlife, if there is one, would be the peace of knowing that those you love are out there living. I hope it is that. Story 126. You are gone and without consciousness. Alternatively, you meet Ted Danson wearing a bow tie. Story 127. You are dead. You live on in the memories of your loved ones. Story 128. When you stop, everything stops and your brain stops functioning. There is nothing magical or spiritual. It simply ends. I had a near-death experience a few years ago while in a coma. There was nothing on the other side. Story 129. You have an extremely long and vivid dream, also known as the afterlife. I'm glad I don't have nightmares. Story 130. I can finally sleep without anyone waking me up for anything stupid. Story 131. Many people think of an individual's life, spirit, or soul as a single thing. I think it is made of many parts that disperse after we die. Some of those parts manifest in other things, and some return to nothingness. Compare life, spirit, or soul to a piece of ice that forms in winter when the ocean freezes. Each piece is unique, but all follow the same process and are made of the same water molecules. That join when the moment is right. When the ice melts, also known as dying, it becomes water that returns to the ocean. In the next winter, some of that water may become part of a different piece of ice, and the rest may remain in the ocean. The original piece will never be the same ice again, whether as water or ice. The ocean is the nothingness from which everything came and to which everything will return. Story 132. Nothing. You are dead. A person's belief in the afterlife is a way to keep one from totally freaking out over one's impending demise. Story 133. I am hoping to go into one of the worm bags and be eaten. How about you? I am sorry you are feeling this way. If you are in immediate danger, call your local emergency number now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Consider contacting a trusted person or a mental health professional. Would you like to talk about what is making you feel like this? Story 134. I don't believe there is anything after death. That belief inspires me to be a better person. I have only one life, so I must make the most of it. There are no shortcuts. Story 135. Sorry, I can't help with requests to reproduce or transform copyrighted text from a link. I can provide a concise summary of that page, or I can edit the text if you paste the specific portion you want modified for Azure text-to-speech. Which would you like? Story 136. I had a religious experience in college with no drugs involved. My entire room began to glow with white light, but no individual objects were emitting light. I felt myself rise and fall as if having an out-of-body experience, which I had not experienced before. I felt connected to everything, as if I could sense every living thing. It was a profound experience that felt like meeting God. God did not speak. There was no booming voice or commandments, only a deep feeling of connection. That said, I generally believe that when you are dead, you are dead. There is no evidence otherwise. I would like to think that we might join that deep sense of connection I experienced, but that is wishful thinking at best. Story 137. Your body remains in the grave, and your soul goes to heaven to be with the Lord until Judgment Day. Story 138. If a multiverse exists, your true self could be anchored to a prime timeline that may always resolve toward transcendence. Any death would be merely the terminal state of a peripheral timeline, unexperienced by the core you. If true, this perspective suggests that those you love are safe from finality and that even those you hate must eventually reconcile. The infinite potential of the multiverse would ensure universal persistence and an ultimate balance. Story 139. My understanding is that I write a will, and then the state or the appropriate authorities will follow the instructions I leave about what to do with my possessions and my body. Story 140. How do mediums and psychics talk to the dead? I believe my father watches over me, but I do not know what happens to us. Story 141. I believe that after I die, my children or my neighbor will bury me. They can cremate me. I really do not care. I do not know what will happen. I am not a religious person, so I have very little imagination about the afterlife. Story 142. Nothing happens. It is as if I did not exist before I was born, and I will no longer exist. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. If you are thinking about harming yourself or are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number now. In the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact local emergency services or a crisis line in your country. Are you safe right now? I can help find resources or connect you with someone to talk to. Story 143. A wise man once said that when we die, those who love us will miss us. Story 144. Sometimes I feel there will be nothingness. Other times I read stories about young children who describe incredibly specific details, including names and locations, from a past life that are later proven accurate, and then gradually stop having those memories as they grow older. Maybe our souls do transfer. I just hope that, whatever the case, there will be comfort at the end of it all. Story 145. It is the same as being put under general anesthesia. There is simply nothing. Story 146. Either oblivion or reincarnation. Maybe there's an outside chance we go to our own personal heaven or hell, but I think the former is more likely. Who knows? Story 147. From my corpse the flowers will grow, and in death I am immortal. A generalized Munch quote. Story 148. Worm food. I don't believe in Santa Claus in the sky. Story 149. You and your experiences return to the source, or God, so it can evolve and learn. Then you probably do it all over again. Story 150. Logic tells me I will simply cease to exist and that all matter that made up my body will return to nature. But that is sad, so I prefer to imagine the universe has a baseline energy that flows through all things and that my conscious mind will return to that energy to be cycled into a new life. I am living in denial, but the prospect of everything just ending is frightening. So fuck it. Laugh out loud. Story 151. I want to donate my body to science, so it will probably be dissected in a cadaver lab. As for my soul, I am not religious, but I would like to think I could linger on Earth and be everywhere at once. Story 152. It was not a belief, but something I experienced when I died during reconstructive surgery because of an incompetent anesthesiologist. I moved on to another life. It was neither heaven nor hell, just another life. Not supernatural or paranormal, but as tangible as anything in this life. It felt like going home. I was happy and content to remain. I stayed long enough that this life began to fade from memory, so it was a shock to return to the operating table as they were about to pronounce me dead. My only caveat is that I do not know whether everyone goes there, only certain people, or only me. That does not change my experience. It only shows I have no answers beyond what I lived. Story 153. Nothing. When the neural activity ceases, you are finished. There is no possible afterlife if you accept physics. You are meat after death. Sorry. Story 154. You will return to where you were before you were born. Do you remember how much fun you had back then? It will be the same. Story 155. I believe that one's energy, once released into the universe, does not simply vanish. We are either within the universe or somewhere else, maybe heaven or hell. Story 156. It's like waking up after sleeping for the first time. Story 157. Based on the religion you follow or the gods you worship, you receive the corresponding afterlife according to that religion's rules. If you do not follow a religion, you may choose an afterlife, or you may simply go to the void or to nothingness. Story 158. Many people assume nothing. You emerged from nothingness once, as inexplicable as that seems. There is no reason to think it could not happen again. Keep in mind that time does not exist in nothingness. If there is a chance you can come to awareness again, you will close your eyes at death and emerge into something else immediately. Story 159. In your last moments, as your world fades and you drift into unconsciousness, as a surge of dimethyltryptamine fills your brain and your mind free associates for a few timeless milliseconds, as you briefly feel everything from your life, as the singular oneness crests and violently dissolves your sense of self into an uncontrollable, thrilling, overwhelming, boundlessly terrifying, accelerating rush toward oblivion and nothingness. Story 160. There is literally nothing. We cease to be. We do not think, and we do not know that we are gone or that we were ever here. Our consciousness ceases to exist. Story 161. I have no idea. I do not really believe in heaven, and eternity is not appealing to me. I think I believe in non-dualism, which means we are all collectively God, not separated from God. The best answer I have is that the filter of life is lifted and we return to universal consciousness. Story 162. The soul forge that God left on the moon absorbs your soul and converts it into energy to keep the lights on in heaven. Story 163. I will be nothing for trillions of years until the molecules and neurons that make up my brain randomly come back together and I exist again. Story 164. You were made from stardust and will return to it. Once your consciousness dies and your neurons stop firing, you simply cease to exist. Where do other species go after death? Nowhere. The same is true for humans, who are a product of evolution. Story 165. I do not have any religious belief. I expect that when my brain stops functioning, my consciousness will stop. So carpe diem, baby. Story 166. Punishment, memory erasure, rebirth as any living species. Could be human again. Who knows? Story 167. The thought of remaining conscious after my body has returned to the earth is terrifying. Lasting for eternity would be torture. Story 168. I suspect nothingness. There cannot be a self without a functioning brain. I hope for reincarnation. I love existing too much. I believe in causal determinism and destiny, and I fear that the universe may be on repeat. After 1 trillion years, the universe will reset and there will be another Big Bang. My theory is that because of causal determinism, every event in this universe will occur again, including my birth, the events that shaped me, and even this conversation. The next Big Bang will be identical to the last, repeated an infinite number of times. Story 169. Nothing, and I am fine with that. Finally, peace and quiet. No more bills and no more dealing with the assholes of society. I am not saying everyone is an asshole. I am saying those people really make life less than it could be. Story 170. When I was small, I thought that when people die they return to their religion's God. Muslims return to Allah, Christians to God, and so on. The most appealing idea was that I could relive this life with all my knowledge and be able to change everything, since I would have already lived it once. Unrealistic, though. Story 171. I think it's better to contemplate why we came from nothing, why we will return to nothing, and what that means for the life we choose to lead while we are conscious. Story 172. Your consciousness is smeared across all reality in unbelievable agony and torment until the heat death of the universe is complete. Then the cycle can begin anew. Story 173. People take my belongings because my corpse cannot defend them. Story 174. Many people died. Some grieved. The rest did not notice. Story 175. It is ridiculous for humans to claim with certainty what happens. Everyone is entitled to their own views, but our brains cannot comprehend certain aspects of the universe, so it is unwise to make statements without solid proof. I believe my body will either become ashes or decompose and be consumed by the earth. After that, I do not care, as long as this existence comes to an end because I find it unfulfilling. Story 176. We go to the spiritual realm. We can visit anywhere on earth, but flocks of ghosts are hightailing it into space to see what else is there, and never return. Story 177. Nothingness. Those who believe in life after death are tragically misinformed. Story 178. All I ask is that I end up nowhere near a large crowd of people on this planet who believe we are all going to the same place. Story 179. I will adopt the Islamic perspective that the afterlife begins when we die. Story 180. Nothing, just as with all living things. If there were an afterlife, heaven, or anything else, then surely everything that ever lived would be there, from blades of grass to humans and elephants. Story 181. I'm shocked by how many people do not believe in any spiritual afterlife. My only daughter passed away in March 2022, and I receive signs all the time. I have always believed in angels and heaven. If I did not wholeheartedly believe, with every ounce of my being, in heaven and an afterlife for my soul, I would not be able to stay on this earth another day. Story 182. I couldn't care less because only the here and now is certain. Why worry about what I cannot control and decisions I'm not involved in? Story 183. Personally, I like to think that we shed our mortal coils and our essence goes out to explore the universe. We do not interact with or influence physical things. We only observe. Story 184. I believe there has to be something. I'm not religious in the sense of Jesus, heaven, or hell, but I think what makes me me is more than electrical impulses and a collection of molecules. My consciousness must go somewhere. Is it stored in the molecules? Does it join the collective energy of everything around me? Who knows, but I hope I carry on. Story 185. I hope I get to see my mother again. Sadly, I am afraid that will not happen because you are gone. Story 186. My belief is that there is darkness and nothing, and your consciousness will cease. My hope, however, is that you will go wherever you want to go. That place is a creation of your mind, formed during your life and based on what your mind lingers on before death. If you believe you will go to heaven, you will go. Valhalla, paradise, hell, or whatever you believe is what your brain will register as the afterlife. Story 187. I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Story 188. I'd like to think humankind will become a spacefaring people after I die. Story 189. I have no way of knowing, so I do not really care. I hope I am transported to another world with extremely powerful abilities, but any afterlife that is not torture will do. For now, my best guess is nothingness. Story 190. You cease to exist. All that is left is a pile of meat to rot, decay, or be burned. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.